Hey, Fred Reed here from CNY Live. Great to see you again. Just had the opportunity to sit down with Ben Mauro. Ben Mauro is a great guitarist and songwriter who's had the opportunity to play worldwide with people like Lionel Richie, Britney Spears, Cher, and many others. He told us about his career and what he's been doing for the past decades, and he's also coming to play at Sharky's on Saturday at 5 o'clock. The doors open at 4. This is a free concert. Give a listen to the interview I had with Ben, and then come on to the show. I'm sure you'll be entertained. Send it over to Sharky's. Tell me a little bit about your background. What got you started in music?
Well, I grew up in Syracuse. Actually, Camillus is where I grew up. Went to West Trinity High School. Went to OCC for a year for classical guitar. And my journey kind of started, I played a bunch of hotels when I was young. I left Syracuse at age 21 and did this hotel circuit for a while that was like kind of like a top 40 circuit. But I had a job as a musician, and that was kind of my dream growing up was, I wanted to be a professional musician and only make a living being a performer. That was my dream. So when I left, I did the hotel thing, and then I moved right outside New York City for about 10 years. And that was where, I really struggled, and that was really my poor years. And at one point, I lived in North Jersey because Manhattan is super expensive. But at a certain point, I started playing in Manhattan. And one of the clubs I worked at was called the Cafe Wah. And that was kind of my start, where it was a club that had music every night of the week. And I played 5 nights a week down there for a few years. I left there and just did like freelance music for a year in New York City. And eventually that led to me getting an audition with Lionel Richie. So it really, it changed my life. It took me from playing little clubs and Irish bars, which I actually loved. I was actually very happy doing that, and just that I was making a living playing guitar and singing was a dream to me. It was already a dream, And then I got to audition for Lionel Richie, and it just, my career, that's really where my career really started.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I went from playing like the local Irish bar on Bleecker Street to being on a tour bus and playing these big shows with Lionel Richie. So that was really the start of my career. That's kind of how it started.
Okay. So as you said, you're a singer and guitarist.
Mm-hmm.
And what got you, what motivated or what inspired you to start playing guitar when you were younger?
Well, I had 2 older cousins. One of them played guitar, one of them had long hair and was kind of a rebel. So they really influenced me growing up. So I definitely gravitated towards guitar because of my one cousin. And I actually played French horn in the school music system here in Central New York. Okay. So I did that for 5 years. And I really loved it. French horn wasn't really a cool instrument.
Unless you're John Entwistle.
Yeah, there are exceptions, but for the most part, it wasn't really like a cool instrument. And at one point, I just stopped playing, and I was like, I was kind of more into sports. But then at about age 16, I just started getting into guitar. I saw a kid at my school playing Stairway to Heaven out in the hallway one day, and I was like, oh my God, I love Led Zeppelin music, and I was like, I gotta learn how to do this. Okay. So that was really kind of the spark, my 2 older cousins, and then seeing somebody that I knew actually playing Stairway to Heaven. I was like, oh my God, it's possible. Somebody could actually do this, So that was kind of what inspired me.
Okay. So let's jump forward again.
Sure.
Back to Lionel Richie. Your career's kind of all of a sudden taken a leap, and you're playing these big shows and stuff. But Lionel Richie isn't the only one that you played with on tour. What are some of the other performers that you've worked with?
Yeah, I've been really lucky. The Lionel Richie thing basically got me on the map as far as a touring guitarist. And I still lived for 2 years in New York City while I had the Lionel gig, because working for someone like that, it's like you can kind of live anywhere because you fly everywhere. It's you just fly to work. Every time I go to work for him, I'm on a plane. So it's kind of funny, but I'm used to it now. After 2 years of working for him and living in New York City, I moved to Los Angeles. And that was where his whole band lived. And it was really tough. I was coming from New York City scene where there was all kinds of live music, and I could play little clubs for $100 a night and string that together and pay my rent and survive. But in Los Angeles, there really wasn't any of that. It was there was no live music. I mean, a little bit here and there, but not like working bands playing R&B and stuff like that. It was very different. And it took me about 8 months to get any kind of work at all. And I was working for free, which I hadn't done in years, and just doing whatever I could do. And then just out of the blue one day, I got a call from Randy Jackson. He called me and he was like, "Hey Ben, this is Randy Jackson." I was like, "Wow, hi Randy Jackson." And I had been watching the American Idol, the first season of American Idol. I'd been watching it. I was a fan. I thought it was really cool. I loved the crazy auditions, you know, or where the it just kind of goes crazy in the audition. And he called me and he said, "Hey, you know, we hired a guitar player. They do a tour every year. After the show, they do like a 6-week tour where all the top 10 winners for the kids, you know, go out and do a little tour, and they hire a band." So he told me, "Hey, we hired a guitar player, but he's having trouble learning the songs fast enough." And he had called Lionel Richie's musical director, a guy named Chucky Booker, and said, "Hey, you know, do you know like maybe a blonde kid that plays guitar that could, you know, maybe learn songs fast?" And Lionel wasn't working a lot back then, so I had time off. So Chucky said, "Hey, I got the guy for you." Okay. So just that recommendation, all of a sudden, you know, Randy Jackson, you know, he asked me about the money, and I was like, "Wow, that's good." And then he said, "Okay, rehearsals tomorrow." You know, so bam, all of a sudden I was in there rehearsing with the American Idol touring band, which we did that tour, and Kelly Clarkson won that year. And when she did TV shows to promote her own record after the tour, that band was her band. So I was actually in her very first band. Okay. So that really was like, I was like, oh my God, like, wow, moving to LA was great. You know, it was like, I could have never got that in New York City. You know, I'd have never got that opportunity. So I did like a few TV shows with her for a while, and then she eventually got another band and just kind of went on her way with her career. I got hired by her a few years later to play on the Ellen Show, and she hadn't seen me for 2 years. She came, "Ben, give me a hug." And I was, she was such a doll. She was so sweet. And then I had a really good run in there in LA for a while. I worked for Britney Spears for a couple tours when she had her Toxic song out. I was her touring guitar player in Europe and in the States. And, you know, I did a couple little things with Christina Aguilera. And then for a while, I mean, that was kind of my goal to like be a, you know, like a number one call guy in LA, you know, and for a while I was. I did the, you know, the Britney Spears. I got to play for Prince for a little while, not in his band, but it was like a project, a thing that he was producing. And it was a girl singer, and he was playing guitar in this band, and somehow got recommended my name, and I went in and I replaced him on guitar to play like some showcases with this girl, and like at his house and everything. So it was really, and at one point in the show, he actually played guitar with us, so it was kind of like, I actually got to play with Prince. Like he actually, you know, I'm playing a guitar solo and he was like playing a little harmony with me.
How many people can say they replaced Prince in a band?
Kind of crazy, yeah. I mean, the day I walked into the studio, they just said, you know, "Can you be at Center Staging Studio in Burbank in 15 minutes? I said, "Well, who's it for?" They said, "Well, we can't tell you." I said, "Yes, I'll be there." Okay. And I walk in, and you know, it's a really cool band. They're just playing, and they're like, "Oh, okay, here, set up over here." And I went up to the amp, and there's all pics with like Prince's symbol on it. I'm like, "What?" I'm like, "Seriously?" And you know, I actually got to do that for a little while. So, and then a couple years later, I got to work with Don Felder. He's the guitar player from the Eagles. He was the guy that wrote Hotel California. And they had parted ways years before, and he has a solo band. And again, because I was in LA and I had a good reputation, I just got a call out of the blue one day from his guitar player saying, "Hey, are you available during these dates? You know, I can't make them, and I heard, you know, you'd probably be a good sub." He said, "You know, are you interested?" I said, "Yes, of course," because the Eagles, to me, when I was a kid, it was like,
oh yeah,
oh God, it's all, you know, I used to love the Eagles. You know, it was just like, oh, we all grew up, I think, with loving the Eagles. You couldn't help it. It's on the radio all the time, and it was just great songs and great guitar songs. So I really gravitated towards that. And then I got a call from Don Felder like a couple days later, and he was like, "Hey Ben, this is Don Felder." I was like, "Oh my God." He was like, "Yeah, I heard you might be able to do this like next little tour with me." And I was like, "Wow, yes, please," you know. And so I got to go to Japan with him and do a bunch of stuff in the States. Probably about for 4 years, I was kind of his main sub for his guitar player whenever I wasn't doing the Lionel thing or whatever. So that was really a dream come true. I mean, I got to play like the harmony guitar solo to almost said so, to Hotel California with him and be right next to him on stage. And it was really, I mean, he really in those days was really like maybe one of the most respected guitar players. You know, his playing in the Eagles and everything, he was just a step above most of those, you know, kind of classic rock guys, I think. Just super talented, his slide playing and all that. So to get to work with him was just, I mean, it was crazy. It was just, and we're friends now. You know, I hear from him every once in a while, and I would love to sub with him again if it ever comes up. But Lionel's just been really busy. Like in the last probably 5 or 6 years, he's kind of exploded again. He's the judge on American Idol now, and his visibility has really came up. So, and one more cool thing I got to do while I was still living in LA was John Fogerty. I knew a guitar tech that was working for John, and they needed somebody to fill in for like a little tour, and it was kind of the same thing. Like I just got a call one day saying, hey, can you be at John Fogerty's house tomorrow at like 10 a.m. and I was already working that night, and they said, okay, here's the songs, and you know, I didn't get home till like 11 o'clock, and I, you know, but I learned them quick, and got to go to his house and actually audition for John Fogerty. Wow. So it was crazy, and I did a tour of Australia with him. I got to play a couple sold-out shows at the Beacon Theater with him. He was there was a couple records that he hadn't played in a few years. He was like fighting with his record company, and when he finally got the masters back to him, he did these 2 special shows in New York City, where one night he played the whole record down, one whole record, and then his regular show. The very next night we played the other record all the way down, and then his regular show. So it was pretty amazing, and I mean, he was such a idol to me when I was a kid. You know, my mom would drive me and my brother to school some days when we missed a school bus or something, and the only cassette she ever had in the car was John Fogerty's Centerfield. So it's like all we ever heard, you know. So it was just like to get to play those songs with him and be right next to him. It was amazing, and in that band I was actually singing a lot. I was like the main background singer, doing a lot of like the high harmonies with him, and he's just, I mean, he's a crazy singer. When you're in a room with him, I mean, he's got like that kind of preacher, that loud preacher voice that is just like gives you chills, you know. And it was like, you know, and I got to sing harmony with him. It was like unbelievable. So, so those were kind of the main, I would say, the main parts of the other people that I've gotten to play with. So.
Okay, that's awesome. That is spectacular, actually.
Thank you.
But through all that, you've done some of your own stuff. I happened to hear one of your CDs, the one listed as Ben Mauro, and
thank you.
Loved it.
Thank
you.
You.
Really great. It's a great compilation. You have a more recent one that's out there.
I do. It's called Good Day. It's an EP. It's only available digitally, so of course iTunes or Amazon. But this one I'm really proud of. It's I had a couple EPs that I released before that are online that were a little more like singer-songwriter and a little bit more pop and all kind of different styles and genres. But this one is kind of more Americana and leaning towards like modern country a little bit. But
see, that's kind of what I got from the CD I listened to yours, and it was, but it wasn't to the point where you'd be like, oh, this is that or this is that. Like I wouldn't have tried to even define a genre. I'd be like, you just gotta listen to it. You know?
Yeah. Well, thank you.
So, what brings you back to Syracuse then? What brings you to Sharky's to play?
Well, I come home every year to see my family. I see my family at least 2 or 3 times a year and come back here. And about, I guess 3 years ago, I started doing an annual holiday show. And it was really just mostly for my family because, you know, they never really get to see me perform. And even if you see me in the Lionel show, and most of my family now has seen me play with Lionel. I've been playing with Lionel for 18 years now. So when I first got the job, like a bunch of my family drove down to Madison Square Garden. We were actually opening up for Tina Turner. Wow. And, you know, it was just a crazy story for me because my parents have always been super supportive of me doing music. And, you know, even in the days when I had bands in Syracuse, you know, they would be the first couple to go out on the dance floor and stuff like that. You know, it always takes that first couple, and they would always get out there, and, you know, maybe sometimes it was too loud for them or whatever, but, you know, they always were supportive. And they'd come down to New York City to see me at like some crazy, I was playing like in a kind of a punk band that was playing hard rock and original music, everything. And my parents came down, and, you know, it wasn't really their kind of music, but they supported and they got up and danced a little bit. And then like 6 months later, I got the Lionel job, and I was playing at Madison Square Garden, you know, and all my family came down, and it was just like, wow, it was like what a change, you know, I'd kind of arrived at that point, you know.
Right.
So anyways, I did a show, and when you see me in the Lionel show, you know, I'm playing Lionel's music, which I love, but it's not really my music, you know, it's not my thing, and you know, maybe 10 years ago, I started writing my own music, and you know, started cultivating that side of, you know, I wasn't just practicing my guitar stuff, I was practicing songwriting, practicing my voice, and things like that. So when I would come home, you know, my family, again, they would never really get to see me sing my songs or stuff like that, and so I started doing these little shows, and they loved it, and I loved it because I was living in Los Angeles, and Los Angeles is such a tough city. I mean, it's a huge city, there's tons of competition, and I was doing solo shows, and, you know, it's really hard to get anybody to come out, you know, you try to get your musician friends to come out or whatever, and, you know, everybody's busy, and, you know, these clubs, they don't want you to play unless you can bring 15 or 20 people, and they got to pay a cover charge, and, you know, honestly, some shows, you know, I'd supposed to start at 8:30, and I'd be sitting there with the promoter at the bar. There'd be nobody in there. He'd just giving me the evil eye, like, you know, why should I ever hire you again? And so it was good for me. I learned how to get through those situations, and I learned, you know, confidence and all that stuff. But to come home was like, all of a sudden, I had like, I don't know, 100 people come to see me, you know, because I have a big family, and it's just like, they would pack this little place out, and it was just like, to me, it was like, oh my God, this is exciting. This is the way to play a show, you know? So it was fun for them, I think, to see me get to do what I love to do, and, you know, kind of play my own songs. And I play some of Lionel's and play some everybody I've worked with, basically, so it really started out for the family, but then friends of the family and other friends started coming, and it really built into a cool thing. So now I just love coming home and doing it every year. I have people sit in with me. There's a guy here in Syracuse named Ricky Chisholm that is a legendary singer here, and he was in my very first band that I had when I was 16, somehow playing the clubs in Syracuse at 16, and I had this horn band that was playing like funky music, and actually this guy Ricky Chisholm loved Lionel Richie. So he got us playing Lionel Richie music, and then, you know, years later when I got the call, it was like I already kind of knew it. You know, I already kind of knew some of the songs. So he sits in with me. He's a joy, and he's just super exciting. He does some Lionel Richie. He does some Stevie Wonder, some James Brown. You know, it's really exciting. He's really dynamic, and it's just exciting for me to get to play with him after all these years and stuff like that. It's like really like family. So that's mostly, you know, it was for my family, but for fun for me too. Is like I actually got to pack the house, you know, so it was pretty fun.
No cover charge?
No cover charge.
No cover charge?
I wanted it to be just everybody could come and, you know, not have to worry about paying a cover. And it's going to start early. It's going to be 5 o'clock. So 5 to 8, maybe a little bit later, like later than that. And of course, Sharky's got great drinks and food and all that stuff. And it's just, I love it here. It's just great. You know, my dad came here for a party or something, and he's like, oh man, you should do your show at Sharky's, you know, and I came down here and met with you guys. I was like, oh, this place is going to be perfect. So I'm excited.
That is great. You're not doing just an acoustic act, you're actually bringing a full band, correct?
Well, it's more what I've liked to do over the years. Sometimes I'll play with a full band, but, you know, that takes a lot of rehearsal, and you really got to kind of, you know, do a lot of work to do that. I've found that it's actually more fun for me to play acoustic guitar with a drummer. So I'm gonna have Billy Harrison, who's a great drummer here in Syracuse. You know Billy? Yeah, I love him. And he's got like a cajon and a hi-hat, and so it's like kind of a small drum set. It's not like a full loud drum set. Kind of like a singer-songwriter, you know, acoustic guitar and you know, cajon kind of a thing.
He's
but
like
it's just
3 musicians in one.
He kind of is. Yeah, he's got electronics. He's got, you know, all his stuff, and so it's really pretty full with just 2 people, and that way I can kind of go in any direction I want, and you know, if I want to make a song longer or whatever, or if I see a friend in the audience that I want to get up and sing, you know, I don't have to worry about the whole band knowing all the chords and everything. I can just do it myself. So we'll see. You know, I'd like to maybe next year have bring a little band with me, but for now, the acoustic guitar and drums actually is really fun for me.
Great. Yeah, Billy's great. We've seen him many times.
Yeah, great kid.
So you do some stuff with West Genesee High School.
I do,
for
yeah.
the music department. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, sure. Probably about 4 years ago, I decided, I was kind of thinking I'd like to do something for the school. That's a school that I went to high school in, and I went back to visit a couple times. I still know Bill Davern that works there, and I was just blown away at how the school has built up, and the music department is awesome. But it seemed like they could actually use some instruments. Like there wasn't. I know when I was going to school, of course there's all the traditional orchestra instruments. But there was never any guitars or anything like that, So my idea, my idea was to donate some money to the school so that they could buy instruments and amps and stuff like that. And Bill Davern was really into it. And, I started, it was funny because I think part of me thought, well, I have to be rich to be able to donate money or something, And then I realized, no, you don't really have to. And it's not like I donated a ton of money, but what I did donate actually helped. And I went back and, he showed me the guitar amp that they bought, and they bought a piano, and they bought some other thing. And I donated some guitars, older guitars of mine that I wasn't really playing. I just donated to the school. So that was just really fun for me. It was just kind of a way to give back and maybe inspire other people that, you don't have to be rich to help out a little bit, in something you believe in. And trying to find a cause that I believed in. I think one of the biggest things was just music education in the schools. It's really such a big thing, and I really believe in it. I think that even if you don't end up trying to be a professional musician, it just helps you in a lot of ways. Helps your brain, helps your social skills, helps you, and it's really fun, and I think I've been very lucky in my life to pursue a career that has been fun for me, something fun. Sometimes I'll come back from a gig and I'll practice for 4 hours, It's like, I'm not at work anymore, I'm just doing it because I love it, and I'm I just have kind of always been that way. And, I felt like if there's any little thing I could do to kind of help more kids experience that, I would love to do that. And now it's fun, I get to go to the school every once in a while and, see Bill and get to see some of the kids and really, kids these days are progressing so much faster, and they're really so much better than we ever were when I was in high school. So it's exciting. Yeah, we never had YouTube, so it's really a big thing. They can find lessons from any all these great players right on their computer. So, but anyways, that's just been a cool thing for me to make me feel good. And then the fact that he tells me that they do some shows where they use that amp or they use that piano, and the kids are in the practice room using that stuff. It's like, wow, I just feel like what a great feeling for me, and if I can help the school a little bit, that's great. So
that is awesome.
Thank you.
So just to kind of wrap it up, so Saturday.
Yeah.
Sorry,
yep.
I lost my dates there.
No problem.
You're gonna be out here playing. People come at 5. You kind of talked a little bit about your show already. Anything else you want to throw out there before we go ahead and wrap this up?
Well, if you want to find out more about me, I've got a website. It's benmauro.com. So that's BENMAURO. And of course, I do the Instagram and the Facebook, and I try to do something pretty much every day, just to kind of keep my face out there and little videos for me performing or whatever. So if you go to my website, you can it'll take you to all that stuff. I've got a YouTube page. One of the cool things about working for Lionel Richie is I've gotten to travel the whole world. I mean, it's really, I think his story, he was so huge in the 80s, and then he took a break for like 7 or 8 years, and then came back, but in the States, it's a fickle place, and trends change very fast in the States, and all of a sudden he was having trouble booking tours in the States. So he started working in Europe and all over the world. So it was like as soon as I started with him, actually my first job was in Dubai, like as his official guitar player. I did a couple before that, just kind of filling in, but it was like, the first big show I did with him, just kind of filling in for his guitar player. He walked up to me, he's like, okay, see you at the next one. And it was in Dubai. So it was like, oh my God, I flew to London, had like a 6-hour layover, and then flew to the Middle East and did this crazy show for, like some huge sheikh with like 100 wives and, owned half the country, owned the airlines. And so working for Lionel, it's really, I've gotten to do some amazing things, and my dad helps keep track. He's been really cool. He's kind of like my manager these days. And I think with Lionel, I've played in 37 different countries.
Wow.
So a few years ago, I started doing a YouTube show called Let's Go with Ben Mauro, like a little travel show, because I was like, I was living in LA. I was kind of, watching. Everybody's an actor in LA, so watching people and hosting little TV shows and stuff. I was like, I could do that. It doesn't look that hard, So I started hosting this little show, and like the first one that I ever filmed, was at the Great Wall of China. Me and Chucky Booker, who was Lionel's musical director, us walking around the Great Wall of China.
Wow.
And everybody wanted to take pictures with us, and it wasn't they knew who we were. It was just like this tall blonde dude and this big black guy. They were like, what is this? Like who are these people?
You must be famous.
Yeah, you must be famous if they're here. So we had fun with just the people, and it really turned into a cool thing for me because it helped get me out of the hotel room. Sometimes you do these crazy flights, you sleep all day, and then the very next day you have sound check and the show, and then you leave the next morning. So it's really, sometimes you're actually in the air more than you're on the ground, But trying to do this show inspired me. I'd get to the hotel, instead of taking a nap, I'd have a sip of coffee, take a shower, and I would try to get somebody to bring me to like the local market or somewhere cool, and I would just meet people and just film, kind of hold the camera myself and just kind of film. And it was turned super fun. And, it was something that I love playing guitar and singing, but being like a host of a music show was really fun, and it was, I think it kind of gave everybody a little bit of a backstage peek at what it's kind of like doing that, and just some of these crazy places that I got to see, and some of the, all over Asia and all these places where, so you can find that, it's on my YouTube channel, which is just Ben Mauro, or you can find it on my website. And on the website, there's some of my music. And the other thing I think that's big with me right now is I just moved to Nashville. So I had a feeling about Nashville. I went down there for a week, and I gave myself a week. Okay, I said, I'm gonna go out every single night, see bands, and see if I like it here. After 2 nights, I was like, I love it here. I'm moving. And everything just fell into place. I came back like 2 weeks later, and I found a place. I love it. And there's a bunch of Syracuse musicians that have moved down there.
Yeah.
Greg Goose LaPointe, Max McKee, a lot of people from Utica. I just met somebody from Buffalo. So there's a whole upstate New York like group in Nashville. And that's been like the people I hang out with, and that's been really inspiring. So I'm gonna have a band together with some of these guys soon, and I'm hoping to do some new music in the next year. I've already met a couple cool songwriters, some from Syracuse, that actually I met through the guy from Sharky's introduced me to a songwriter, and we hung out, and I was like, wow, this is great. So Nashville's been exciting, and I think that next year I'm gonna start working on a new record. Hopefully, collaborating with some of these talented people in Nashville, songwriters, and so that's kind of my exciting thing that's going on with me. But really, this week it's this show. So I'm excited to be at Sharky's, and with Ricky Chisholm and Billy, it's always fun. And again, my great family that it's going to be a party with them. And there's a couple other singers that are going to sit in, and who knows? I got some other friends that might come by. You never know, but really, I hope that we can pack the place out. And again, there's no cover, and we'll be doing some holiday tunes, but mostly just kind of having fun and just making it a holiday party. So
Perfect.
Thank you.
I hope everybody can stop down here on Saturday. Doors open at 4. 5 o'clock is the show. Join Ben Mauro's family, and let's raise the roof of the place.
Love it.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Fred.
Appreciate you for coming
Thank
down.
you very much. Appreciate it.